Welcome to another edition of Around the Table with Stacy Smith as we take a look at the political scene. The lull in the primary season is about to end as South Carolina Republicans will head to the polls on Saturday to decide who they want to see as the GOP presidential nominee. While the political focus will be on South Carolina, of course, the campaigning for the fall is underway. That is part of the discussion today in Around the Table with Stacy Smith. And here to discuss that is my astute panel of analysts. And I'm going to introduce them to you. And they are former governor of Pennsylvania, Tom Corbett. Mr. Corbett also served as the Attorney General for the state of Pennsylvania and as the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Pennsylvania. Tom teaches law now at Duquesne University. Jim Byrne is the chairman emeritus of the Democratic Party in the state of Pennsylvania. He served as the state chairman during a crucial time for the party. He also served as president of the Allegheny County Council and as mayor of Millvale. Jim is an attorney in town. And as we go around the table, we find Keith Schmidt. Keith's background in politics goes back to the Reagan presidency, and Keith was the state director for the state of Pennsylvania for former Republican Senator Rick Santorum. Keith also consulted Santorum's 2012 presidential bid. Keith has his own consulting firm. One of my regular panelists, Joe Mystic, could not be with us today. So, gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us for Around the Table with Stacy Smith. So why don't we go on into what we have to talk about here today? And that is, on Tuesday, Nikki Haley said that she is going to stay in the race to garner the GOP presidential nomination, even if she loses in her home state of South Carolina. So, Keith, my question to you, is this a quixotic endeavor or is there something else at play here?
You know, if there's something else at play, I don't know what it is. This is one of these things that are very, very confusing to me. I pride myself in being in this game a long time. I've given, hopefully, some good advice to candidates along the way. If I was in her inner circle, I'm trying to figure out the play, you know, because whether you like it or not, as I said many times, please don't kill the messenger. The way the cards are set up this year, there's only one Republican that could win for president of the United States, and that's Donald Trump. Like that or not, because the reality is, even if he would stand down by choice or some case would come up or he would be indicted and have to stand aside and Nikki Haley would be the alternative, the Trump people, the MAGA wing of the party, which has to be at least 35 or 40% of the party, will not assimilate to her candidacy. And the fact is, she won't be able to put the coalition together, even if she was our nominee to be president. So it's a fool's bargain here. And I scratch my head about, you know, the whole sense of she was a very popular governor because she was a doggone good governor. You know, she had a remarkable career, and to stare down recent polls, and again, they're polls. Some of them, you know, are not always spot on. But most of these polls have her trailing by 25 or 30 points. That's an extreme blow to not only your ego, but even your future in politics when your home state rejects you so handily. So I am scratching my head. I don't know what she's thinking. She's looking to be the alternative, but all that she'll be is an alternative for the nomination because there's no path for her to the White House.
Well, Keith, I'm going to disagree with you in this respect. If something should happen to Donald Trump from the judicial issues that he is facing, who's going to take his place? If she's remaining in this race at this point in time, I think she becomes the front runner that she didn't bail. Then, if you say the Republicans won't rally around her, then you're saying that the Republicans are just going to give it to President Biden, when the Republicans don't necessarily agree with President Biden on almost everything. So I think she's playing out the string. As long as she has the money to be able to do this, because you have to have the money, she's trying to probably get as far as Super Tuesday and maybe beyond. There's people talking to her about that. But she also becomes, if she were to be the candidate, you know, she'd be the first Republican woman to be running for president of the United States. I think that makes her attractive to a number of different people, particularly to the women that we have lost in the Republican Party that have either gone to become Democrats or gone to become independents. So she has, as far as I'm concerned in this case, she's looking at this in the long term. She may not win, but at this point, she has nothing to lose to try.
I agree with Governor Corbett, and I would see what Governor Corbett has to say here. I'll see that, and I'll raise it a little bit, and for a couple of other considerations. Nikki Haley still concerns me as a former state chairman if she's on that November ballot. The polling, we talk about polls. Pick a poll, any poll. Here, let me pull this one out and talk about this one. The poll that says Nikki Haley in the fall has more of an advantage right now than Mr. Trump. In fact, Mr. Trump does not have an advantage. It's either neck and neck or Joe Biden is winning. But when you put Nikki Haley up now in the fall, she looks to be ahead. Now that would change if she became the nominee. We can roll out plenty of material and information which concerns us if she were to be the president, and that number would come down. But right now, it's up, number one. Number two, Keith talks about the 35% MAGA. That's been about the same since 2016. But the GOP, respectfully, what about the rest of the GOP? What about the moderates? What about those who do not agree with Donald Trump and do not agree with Joe Biden, but are looking for an alternative to Donald Trump? Let me pull this poll out. And let's talk about this one. The poll that shows with non-MAGA Republicans, Nikki Haley is beating Donald Trump 2-1 or higher. What about that? The GOP right now, I would submit, because of the MAGA problem, is a dysfunctional two-headed wooden nickel, and they can't figure out which way to go. If you go away from Donald Trump, the MAGAs sit out. If you go, if you go with Donald Trump, the moderates either stay home, vote for Biden, or just skip him on the ballot. So I'm not so quick to dismiss what Nikki Haley is doing right now for the reasons of Donald Trump still being on the ballot, for the reasons that have been articulated by Governor Corbett, and for some of those other considerations that I've just mentioned.
Well, off air, I hope you send me those polls, because you and I are looking at very different polls. I don't know anything about the things you just told me. That I'm scratching my head. Like, please send me those polls. And if she's leading with non-MAGAs 2-1, how come
I didn't say that. I said non-MAGAs. I said non-MAGAs.
Primary or ballot.
Call the Haley camp, Keith, because that's
What's
where
that?
the polls are coming from. I didn't say
Of
MAGAs.
course
I
they're coming
said
from the
non-MAGAs.
Haley camp.
Get a
Okay,
hold of
thank
somebody
you.
on the
They're
Haley
coming from the
campaign.
Haley
They'll
camp.
be happy
Of
to
course
send
they're
you
coming
everything
from
that
the
I
Haley
just said.
Yeah. Okay, guys. I'm
Oh
going
my God, they're coming from the Haley camp. Okay, all right.
Oh, you're calling one of your own a liar? She's not lying.
Well, I know how you exaggerate polls when you release them from your candidate. You have to have independent polls. If they're coming from her, they're absolutely not reliable. Because she's trying to raise money. She's trying to stay alive. It's just it's folly.
Let me add my poll. The poll I get is from walking on the streets and talking to people who know me, know that I'm a Republican. They're Democrats, they're Republicans. And the statement I hear repeatedly is, can't we find two better candidates than Trump and Biden?
100%.
And that's overwhelming. That's why I think she's staying in for a while.
Well, I disagree with you. We have two bad choices.
I want to, we're almost out of time in this segment, but I do want to throw this out. And Governor, I'll pose it to you. If she stays in, does not get the nomination, Donald Trump is, obviously, he's not going to do much with her at this point. Has she damaged her political career down the road?
I don't think she cares. I really don't think she cares at this point in time. What's she going to do if she doesn't get this? Is she going to run for the Senate? Maybe. But other than that, there's nothing else for her to go do. It's not to be a governor again.
She'll write a book and make millions of dollars.
When the MAGA fever breaks, which it will, she's the face of the GOP. And again, she brings components to that role that the GOP hasn't seen in a long time. And Nikki Haley would serve to mitigate the effect of the Dobbs decision, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So, and the MAGA fever ends with this election. It's over. Win or lose, the end of MAGA is this election cycle. There is no big election for the Trump and the MAGAs. You'll either win or lose, but it's over.
And our time for this segment is over as well. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Around the Table with Stacy Smith as we take a look at the political scene. Now we're talking more nationally, the presidential race, than anything else. In the past couple of weeks, we have seen the vice president, the secretary of the Treasury, the secretary of Transportation, all of them visit Pittsburgh. And it's no coincidence, of course, that it's a presidential election year. Some of them brought money in hand. So, Jim, I have to ask this. As far as the regular voter goes, do these high-profile visits really make any difference?
Yes, they do. People expect to see that. It's a tradition in politics. It's a tradition in campaigning. From the mayor of Millville to the White House, to the governorship, to the state attorney general. Any of us who have served know the importance of retail all the time, but in particular, when you're on the ballot. Sophie Maslow used to say, day one of your re-elect begins the second you take your hand off the Bible and begin your term in office. That is very true. You do the retail the best you can while you're serving. You try to stay engaged with the electorate, but when you're on the ticket, You really have to get out there and do those campaign events, the appearances. Yes, I mean, this is nothing new that we're seeing right now. This has been going on since the Republic was founded, I would submit. So does it hurt not to do it? Yes. Look at 2016. I had just left the state party. I was concerned out here in Western Pennsylvania that Secretary Clinton was not here enough. They were doing Philly, they were doing Pittsburgh, they weren't doing the 79 corridor as much as we thought they needed to do. And I think the lack of retail in certain parts of our Commonwealth significantly contributed to Ms. Secretary Clinton not winning this state. So yes, people expect it, they would like to see it, and it's nothing different. We've seen Mr. Trump in Pennsylvania as well, and we'll see him and surrogates for him again and again and again. It's part of what you do as a candidate. It's part of what you do as a leader.
Well, listeners, once again, I completely agree with Jim. He's right. He's right on this one. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's going to be a close election either way. No one's going to blow out anybody this year. So you have to put a coalition together. Everything counts. And quite frankly, there's a reason that in this great republic, there's a certain advantage to incumbency. There's a reason why incumbents win, because they have a structure that the opponents and challengers don't have. And when you have cabinet secretaries, you have other officials that can come and land the plane and shut down traffic and bring a big oversized check and announce programs, and you're in charge. Of course, that is the advantage of incumbency. And every incumbent does it, like you said. They'd be foolish not to do it. You expect it. And to agree, it's a mitigated a little bit with Trump because he was a former president, so he talks in grandiose fashion and acts like he's delivering already, which he can't, obviously, with being out of office. But Jim's right. This is pretty standard operating procedure, and you're foolhardy not to do it.
Can I get a picture of this with the time that Jim and Keith agree on something here?
Governor, well, I agreed before.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead.
Let me just boil it down to this. He who is the incumbent has the money to come in and spend on a region. He's doing it. The president is doing it in other regions of the state, I'm sure. He goes to Philadelphia on a regular basis. He's trying to, again, be that president from Pennsylvania. Excuse me. But there's two forms of media. There's what you pay for commercials. You haven't seen too many paid commercials by him right now. And then there's what we call earned media. Show up somewhere. The media comes out. They take his pictures. He shakes hands. The vice president comes out. Nothing's new. This is just like any other campaign.
I was mayor of Millvale when Governor Rendell in 2006 was going around. And I swear to God, it was the same check. He just put different. If you saw the checks, I mean, it looked like he went out to a retail store, got a refrigerator, cut the whole side of the box, and painted it into a giant check. And he came to Millvale. He was in Etna. He was in Sharpsburg. He was in Carnegie. He was in Harrisburg. He was up in Lycoming. He was over in Scranton. He was in Elysburg. He was everywhere. And with this big giant check, he just slapped something else on it, and it's what you expect to see. Governor, I don't know if you walked around and had that big check. Or maybe it was it in the governor's mansion and every governor gets to use it?
Well, no, you make a new one for each different event. Okay. And Commonwealth Media, actually, when you're doing those, it's really the political campaign that pays for those.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You know what? When he brought the check to Millvale, we left it behind the council seat. So whenever the constituents came to the meeting, they saw the governor's check behind us.
But it was political campaign pay for that.
Okay.
Places like Chicago, the mayor brings cash though, which is nice. Cash is always better.
All right. I have to pose this question. All right. So they come with a check, and I can see where whichever party that candidate happens to be, the incumbent, the party members feel good about that. But does it really sway any independents to go toward that candidate?
I doubt it. One way or the other. Yesterday we were talking about clean water, a very good issue to talk about. I think the independents are going to make up their mind probably the month before or 2 weeks before the election as to who they want in that regard. But I don't think all those visits, other than keeping their name and their persona in place, I come to Pennsylvania. We know it's one of the three battleground states between us, Wisconsin, and Michigan. I come there, I'm saying hi to my constituents. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
it'll fire up your
advantages for
base.
incumbency, but you also have to. The disadvantage is you're the incumbent, so in some ways you have to tell people that I'm a good incumbent. I'm actually at the job here. I'm doing my job, his or her job. So they have to show themselves as a woman or man who should be reelected. So you have to show that type of activity with your supporters and your staff to show that you are delivering on the things you promised 2 or 4 or 6 years ago.
Jim, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, you fire up your base. You fire up your base, and then the independents, they watch like a jury watching the evidence come in. And as the governor said, they won't begin their deliberations until we get closer to the November.
All right, we have to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Around the Table with Stacy Smith as we take a look at the political scene. We're talking more national presidential politics right now, and this is unlike any other presidential election recently, with headlines concerning the mental capabilities of one candidate and headlines about felony trials and court cases concerning the other candidate. Governor, the question is to you. The polls show that most Americans don't want either man as president of the United States. But if these two people, Biden and Trump, are the nominees for their respective parties in the fall, what should Americans do if they don't like either one of these candidates?
Well, they don't have to vote for either one of them. They could I would say, go to the polls and vote for everybody else, or write somebody else in. Keep in mind, we'll see if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has gotten himself onto the ticket, or any other third-party candidate has gotten to the ticket. But I would encourage people who don't like either one of those candidates to still go and vote, because Congress, the Senate, we have a Senate race, we have congressional races, we have House and Senate races in Pennsylvania. It's important for the people to go to the polls and vote.
Absolutely. The fact that folks don't like either one, I mean, again, polls are polls. Pick a poll, any poll, grab one and talk about it. Let's talk about that one specifically, that folks would rather see somebody other than one of these two. Well, we're going to see President Biden, and it gets back to the comms issue. The president's comms team needs to do a better job, because a lot of the things that have happened in this administration are nothing less than historic. Comms needs to do better. But let's look at
comms, you mean their communication? Is
communications.
That right? Yeah. Okay.
Communications. You need to do, but let me stick to the question though, Stacy. But yes, that's a whole other conversation. So it's both of them. All right, but that might get interest for somebody like Robert Kennedy Jr. There's an article, he's burning through his cash pretty fast right now. He needs to fix that. But if you don't like either one, for whatever reason, right or wrong, then you need to look behind the candidate and see who's backing them, see what type of infrastructure they will have. And if it's about infrastructure and stability, number one issue, if you get past the candidate, is which candidate brings stability to the United States of America based on the people they surround themselves with. Incredible advantage for Joe Biden on that issue, if you don't like either one. Look who's going to be with them in the cabinet. Look who's going to be in the administration. Stability versus chaos and divisiveness. Advantage Biden.
Well, I look at the polls. I think Jim and the governor echoed the fact that the vast majority of Americans would like a third or a fourth choice. They don't like the first two. But let's just set it up that these two octogenarians are going to be it. We're going to live with it. It's going to be Trump and Biden. I would suggest two things. One, it'll probably be the most important election in my lifetime for the vice presidency. I think the president's choice, if he keeps Harris, and who Trump picks, becomes hugely important, because people understand the aging process. People can add. It'll be highlighted in both campaigns that you have either an octogenarian or a near octogenarian running for president, and there's already beyond the life expectancy for a man in America, or he could either man could stand out because of some health concern in a year or two, and you'd be raising their right hand and swearing in the vice president as the chief executive of this great country, and that's a reality. And I think people are going to get that this year. So those two picks are critically important. The second thing I would suggest is, I think if we stick with Biden and we stick with Trump, I think Jim mentioned a long time ago, you're in the end, are the Republicans going to vote for the Democrat? No, you're right. So I think in both cases, Democrats concerned with the president's age and mental acuity, and Republicans who just can't stump Donald Trump, neither one can vote for the other party. I think it will be one of the largest undervotes in American history. I think people will come to the polls and you will see higher votes for other offices, and people will choose just not to cast a ballot because they can't support the opposing party, but they can't in good conscience support their own candidate.
I haven't heard that one yet.
I agree with that, though. That's why I was urging people to turn out, because those other races are extremely important. And if that many people really don't want to vote for Trump or Biden, and they're the nominees, they should probably look at who the vice president is. And if they don't like that, then they're going to stay away, but they need to come and vote for the other candidates that are on the ballot.
You know, if the issue is this dissatisfaction and which could lead to an undervote for the president, I would posit, and the DNC needs to do more of this than they have been. It's not just Joe Biden that's on the ticket as president. It's the Constitution of the United States as we know it that's on the ticket. Mr. Biden and those who are supporting him are working within the law of the Constitution of the United States. I would submit to the viewers, and the electorate will be hearing more of this as we get closer to November. If Mr. Trump is the front runner and Mr. Trump becomes a nominee, he has shown a complete lack of respect and complete disregard for the Constitution of the United States of America. If it doesn't serve his purposes, he would just prefer to shred it, and that is a danger. We have never been at risk like this with our Constitution. It's comparable in some ways to the Civil War.
All right, we have to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Around the Table with Stacy Smith, and we're talking politics. And every once in a while, I like to ask my analysts their predictions. So it's time to do that again. We will. My first question is: will Summer Lee survive the primary and be reelected to Congress? And will Chris Deluzio be reelected in the 17th? Governor, I'll start with you.
I'd say yes with Deluzio. With Summer Lee, and you're asking the Republican what the Democrats are going to do.
Yes, I am.
a little hard. It's a three-way race right now. If it remains that way, kind of leans more towards Summer Lee winning. If it becomes a two-way race, I think it'll be very close. I know there's a strong effort, and Jim can comment on this, by mainstream Democrats that would rather see a different candidate than Summer Lee.
That's true. There is a big push by mainstream Democrats to go after Summer Lee. She has a 100% voting record with the AFL-CIO, yet interestingly, the Labor Council did not make a recommendation in that race. So that may have to do with the fact that there's three folks. But her bona fides with the party and Labor are as good as any congressperson that served from Western Pennsylvania. In a crowded field, I suspect Summer will be successful this primary. The one challenger, not Bhavini Patel, but the third challenger, there were some challenges filed to her petitions, which were extraordinary. I haven't read the complaint yet, but it sounds as if they're alleging that the circulators didn't have the credentials to circulate, which, if true, knocks every signature off of every petition of those circulators. We'll see what happens with that. That's going to be something interesting to watch. If that makes it a Bhavini Patel versus Summer Lee race, I still think it will be advantage Summer Lee. Some of the folks, and I've said this before, it's just my opinion, Bhavini's perceived as Rich Fitzgerald's candidate. He has had a very abysmal record in primaries with candidates that he endorses. And that will work against him. I've seen it happen before. I suspect to see that again. Chris Deluzio, prototype congressperson for Western Pennsylvania. He's all over this district. He did the Sophie Maslow approach. He started working the minute he took his hand off that Bible and began serving our district. He's everywhere. He's proactive. He reaches out, and a former U.S. Naval Academy veteran. He is a good candidate, and he's a pragmatic progressive that appeals to both sides of the aisle. It will be impossible, in my opinion, to beat him. Advantage Chris Deluzio.
Keith, I'm going to ask you. The Cook report says this 17th is a toss-up, though.
Yeah, I respectfully disagree with Jim. It's a top 10 for the NRCC. In my opinion, we also have a veteran running and a very attractive candidate. Rob McCurry is not only a good candidate, he's also a friend of mine, somebody I know well. Similar to Chris Deluzio, I won't take anything from him. He's a hard worker, but so is Rob. I think on the issues we might be able to win this thing. I think the fact that he is the whip of the Progressive Caucus in Congress is not going to help him. It helps you when you're in the urban setting, but when you start moving to suburbia, and a large part of the district is in Beaver, I can tell you they're not progressives. And if it can be articulated that he is left of center, that could be a very effective tool late in the campaign in a well-funded race. And I can tell you he's a good fundraiser, Rob, and they're going to put a lot of money in this race. It's going to be a barn burner. I'm going to predict an upset, but we'll wait and see. As far as Summer Lee is concerned, if it's a three-way race, she's a winner. I mean, there's no way you're going to beat Summer Lee as an incumbent. If we come out of this petition process, there's three candidates. Not only advantage Summer Lee, it'll be a substantial victory.
All right, let's move on.
Stacey, I just want to add,
Yeah.
my answer was as to the primary. It had nothing to do with the general election.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the general election. So
No, I took it.
I
as
heard you go.
general election. I believe it's a toss-up, depending on what's happening at the top of the ticket again.
okay, good. I'm glad you clarified that for us. Well, we talked about those two congressional districts. We're moving on to the fall here. What about Pennsylvania's congressional makeup? Right now, it's 9 Democrats to 8 Republicans. Does it stay that way after the election in the fall?
It could
I think it
easily
does.
flip either way.
I think if the Democrat carries the presidency in Pennsylvania, or the Republican, if Trump wins Pennsylvania, that could be the difference of 8-9. I mean, because some of these are teetering. There could be some moderate coattails involved with a close race. So I think as whoever takes Pennsylvania in the presidential, they'll also have the advantage in the delegation.
State parties engaging in its 67 county strategy right now, going to start where we're discussing coordinated campaigns, et cetera. All the ships rise. Philly's going to come out big. Scranton and everybody's going to come out big for Joe Biden, obviously. That's going to have a coattail effect. I think we hold serve 9 to 8, and depending on some of the ones where it's a little closer, maybe grab one. Again, like my friends both have said, it's going to be the strength of the top of the ticket.
All right, well, let's move on to the Senate race. And that, of course, is Bob Casey against Dave McCormick. Will Casey hold on to his Senate seat as the Democrat?
Well, I'm not particularly excited about the soon-to-be Republican nominee. He's a good enough candidate, but with $50 million, couldn't find his way out of a primary the last cycle. But things change. They tell me he's going to be a hard worker. But I can tell you that there is vulnerability for Bob Casey this cycle, largely because he got lucky, and some of it's luck. And when you run for office, the last 3 elections when he ran for Senate, 2006, 2012, 2018, were literally landslides nationwide for Democrats. He ran in 2 great cycles. For all intents and purposes, this cycle is going to be a little tougher. So he's going to have to pay a little more attention. He's going to have to work harder, and I think he is vulnerable. So if McCormick is willing to put a boatload of money, compete with him on money, surpass him on money, and a Republican wins Pennsylvania, there's a chance, but I still think the advantage is with the incumbent.
It is with the incumbent. I agree, Keith. And you did hit on the fact that a couple of those cycles that he ran in were big blue waves, and that certainly contributed to his success. But there was also a variable that I think also contributed, and we're going to see a lot of that in this cycle from Senator Casey, and that is the ability to roll up your sleeves and do aggressive retail campaigning. He got that from his father. He learned the 67 counties from his father. He learned the 67 counties when he was auditor. And I crisscrossed the state with him in 2012 when he was a candidate and I was state chairman. And and for the viewers who aren't aware what an advance sheet is, when you're going into a community to do retail politics like we've been talking about, your team will give you an advance sheet. Who is in that community you're going to? What are the issues? Who is who? A little bit of background on everybody. So when you look at the advance sheet and you get out of the car, they would think you grew up across the street. It's just part of what you do when you're doing retail, and you have an advance team giving you what you need to be articulate when you get out of that car or that bus and start speaking. When we crisscrossed Pennsylvania in 2012, Senator Casey didn't have advance sheets. He knew where we were going. He knew who the people were because of all his years of retail politics as the Auditor General, the retail he had done with his father in the 70s or when Governor Casey served. So he's willing to do the work. We did an event at the Cernic picnic in Johnstown in the summer of 2012, which began at 3 o'clock. Then we had to go up to the picnic in Clearfield. He was in San Francisco the day before. He did a red eye into Pittsburgh. Off we went. Hard worker, advantage Casey.
Governor, we have about maybe 20 seconds here.
Well, I'll keep it short. Whoever wins the presidency wins the Senate.
There
Okay.
you go.
There we go.
Brevity
There you
is
go.
the soul of wit.
All right. Well, we don't have time to find out who you think is going to win the presidency, but we'll do that the next time.
Cliffhanger.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us once again. And thank you for watching Around the Table with Stacy Smith.
Thanks, Stacy.